So real quick, I said that there's this thing in the libertarian movement, the non-aggression principle. This is the principle upon which all of the liberty movement is built, essentially. The idea that, hey, it's not right to aggress against people, not right to use aggressive force to start something, to threaten somebody, to hold a gun to somebody's head, to hurt somebody who hasn't first harmed you. That's kind of the idea behind the non-aggression principle. And it's a darn good principle. It's one worth living by. But there are certain times when maybe it shouldn't really apply, or it doesn't really make sense. And I don't know if it was you, Mark, that came up with this one, but I'm willing to give you credit for it. The person standing in front of the bus argument, right? So there's someone standing in front of a bus, not on purpose, presumably. You don't really know. You're there on the city street. You see someone who is about to get hit by a bus. This could really harm them or possibly end their life.
You don't say the term bus because you expect them to live.
Right. You, being somebody who appreciates life and appreciates, maybe you would also appreciate being saved from being hit by a bus. You could put yourself in that person's shoes. You heroically jump up within the right amount of time to allow you are both not hit by the bus, and you manage to save the individual by shoving them out of the way as hard as you need to in order to move them, but maybe it ended up being a little bit too hard and it hurt, and you
break some ribs or something.
You broke a rib, or they fall into the pavement in a way that shatters some sort of bone. It hurts.
This is uncomfortable.
But they survived, and it's pretty clear you used aggression in that case.
I'd say that's true.
Used aggression. You violated your principles. But you did it for a reason that presumably, now you don't know for sure, the person may have been trying to commit suicide. But presumably that person did not want to get hit by the bus on that particular day. And
if you're committing suicide by getting hit by a bus, you are aggressively acting against somebody else's vehicle, and
that's true.
Anyone is within their rights to prevent you from doing that.
Okay, well, either way, I'm presuming the person wasn't.
If somebody's taking a key to the hood of a car, I think I am within my reasonable rights to assume that that person is not keying their own car.
Fair enough, Mark, but it doesn't matter. You're still using aggression against somebody who they were standing still, and you pushed them out of that spot. Yeah. So you've aggressed against them, and that's clearly an issue or an instance where the non-aggression principle just doesn't apply when we're talking about protecting life, when we're talking about helping somebody, doing something we would presumably want done for ourselves. Even if it costs them a broken rib, they got their life out of the deal.
Yeah, you would assume.
So when you look at a situation like that, and we could, I'm sure if we thought for long enough, think of some other situations where let's bend this principle because it seems to be the right thing to do in that
A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to bend that principle. I don't.
Well, this is a legitimate example of this. Yeah. And so then the question would be, if the person did not, in point of fact, want to be pushed out of the way, or they're just a jerk, they could try to sue you. And they could say, you aggressed against me. How
I think
dare
in
you?
today's litigious society, it is reasonable to expect somebody that you saved from being hit by a bus and break their ribs to sue you.
There's a good argument for that. But so there's a chance something like that could happen, in which case then your argument would be that, well, you would have thought that it would have been the right thing to do. You had no intention to harm the person, but ultimately, yeah, you did violate the principle. You had to be willing to accept the consequences, and that was a possible consequence. Before you save that person and possibly harm them in the process of saving them in order to save their life, you had to accept in advance that there might be some fallout from that, that maybe this person would possibly be angry about it, they would bring you to court or something like that. And if you're willing to accept the consequences of that, then I think that it's not a problem. It's not, you shouldn't be punished for that necessarily. I don't think violating the non-aggression principle in certain instances is this unholy thing that must be this inviolate thing.
Well, taking it back to the baby, I would say that much of childcare is a violation of the non-aggression principle. I have said over and over on this show that I believe that babies are humans, and I had a son. I'm clear that when I held him down in his little chest, I didn't push too hard, but I held him right in the middle of his little chest to hold him onto the changing table.
He would have liked to have gotten up.
He did. He probably would have liked to have gotten a handful of what was in his diaper, and God knows what he would have done with it. But I kept I kept his hands out of it for the most part. I wasn't always successful, mind you, but I did my best with wipes at that point.
Or like when you pulled him away from running into the street, for instance, when he was running down towards the road.
Yeah, he didn't really make it that far, but I certainly did use force to grab him and bring him back to the house.
Because you can put yourself in the little person's shoes, and say to yourself, you probably would have wanted to continue life rather than running into the street and getting hit by a car. So therefore, it was the right thing to do to violate the non-aggression principle in that case. And then goes back to the question of the deformed, sick baby that is, living in a horrible amount of pain. You can't ask the baby for its input. Maybe down the line it would have survived and everything would have been fine. Or maybe it would have bled out internally in another month or from whatever the problem was and ultimately died a painful death. And if you and the other loved one in your life, your partner, who you created the child with.
I call her my wife.
If you both agree that the right thing to do is to end the suffering of this child, I don't think that's wrong.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.